Given your life's work of introducing this age-old ancient craft of Ralli to a global and international audience, in your opinion, Dr. Patricia, what do you think has been one of the major things that people have gotten wrong vis-a-vis the craft? What has been one of the major misunderstandings, if you will, about Relay? And was it challenging for you earlier on, explaining it to a global audience, of course, at these museum events, etc., at these circles, craft circles? What was it like?
Um, those are very good questions. I think I'll start with my background as a person who loves textiles, as a person from America, as a person who's just drawn to craft. So I'm coming from that background. So perhaps I noticed it more than other people may have, but it very in the United States in 1976, we celebrated the 200-year anniversary of the United States. And one of the crafts that is associated with colonial America and through the development of America is quilting. So quilting has been a huge thing in the United States, and it's particularly since that 1976 anniversary where people were going back and looking at all the old crafts. Um,
Yeah.
there was a lot of attention on it. And so there was also a lot of women getting into it again. Some groups had never left quilting behind. It had been around, since the start of America and just kept going. And in fact, in my group, actually, in our church group, we would often gift quilts. We would make quilts for special occasions, like particularly like girls graduating from high school and going off to college. We would make a quilt for them. They'd take them to their college dorm.
Yeah.
So there were I myself was really aware of quilting, and I think most Americans had some idea of quilting. So when I got to Pakistan, one of the things I realized is I lived in Islamabad, and of course, big city. Um, and as I got to know about the quilts, visiting shops and things, I would ask people, well, what do you think of these? I'm just so enamored by these Raleigh quilts, and they're just so fabulous. And sometimes I'd just be met with blank stares, and they would just not even know what I was talking about. And these are Pakistanis. And so that really made me wonder. And I realized I had to get, if I wanted a conversation about these with somebody giving me more information, I had to talk to people from Sindh. And not only Sindh, but outside of Karachi, more rural Sindh, because they would be aware of it, they would have seen it. So I realized it was just such an important craft for the rural people of Sindh, um, and then also for not only the people that worked with the land, but also uh, the landowner families also were aware of the Raleighs and used them for gifts.
Yeah.
Particularly weddings or whatever, they would use them for gifts. So the people from Sindh were 100% knowledgeable. They enjoyed the Raleighs. They appreciated them. They appreciated the fine work in them. But getting out of that area, there were other people from Pakistan who just didn't even know what they were. They had hardly seen them. So um, that's how I discovered it was a very much a regional thing. And then when I traveled to India, I realized that those people that were still in the area of the Tar Desert also knew Raleighs. So it kind of broadened where the Raleighs were. Not only was it Sindh, but also the Tar area of India. Um,
Yeah.
so then I realized that one of the things that I could perhaps contribute to is making people aware of the Raleigh craft and how absolutely fantastic it was and is. And so uh, that's kind of how I started. First my first exhibit was at the American Center in Islamabad, and we had a woman who was
Wow.
from the United States who was a quilter, and she had come to the embassy with her husband, and so he was. While he was working, she was quilting. So she had a fantastic collection of American style quilts. And so we had an exhibit with her quilts on one side of the room and the Raleighs on the other side. And it was called Quilts East and West.
Wow.
Yes, it was really fun. And we had so many comments, people realizing that they are both fantastic styles of quilts, but the ones done in the West and the ones done in Pakistan, and they equally marvelous and wonderful, and made with equal skill. That both were wonderful textile examples. So uh, but so I guess that is part of why I was drawn to them, because I did have the background from my upbringing to see them. I think it just took a while for people to, if they hadn't recognized what quilting was previous to that, that to actually see them for what they are.
Absolutely,
Beautiful.
wow. Go ahead, Zen.
Doc- Dr. Trisha, when was the first year you showed Pakistani Ralli in the US? And what was the reaction of American quilters?
Okay, I think my first one was um, 2003, and it was an exhibit. It was a special exhibit at the International Quilt Festival in Houston, Texas. And it was, uh, people were amazed. They were absolutely amazed. And in fact, I kept a guest book where people could write their comments on it. And they just, it was just unbelievable, amazing, so intricate, so love the colors. I mean, it was just wonderful. People were really blown away by the whole craft, and the people that go to those kind of shows, so many of them are quilters themselves, and they realize
Mm.
that the level of skill that it takes to make the Raleighs. Most people start with patchwork because it's straight lines and, geometric designs. And so there was some of that. But then when they started into the applique work and the little tiny, tiny lines that the quilters were able to make with the applique work, and the edgings and the tassels and the everything, they were just really blown away is the only word I can think of right now of their reaction.
Absolutely, that's wonderful. Dr. Patricia, you were interviewed by Forbes, and in that you talked about your entire research process regarding the compilation of the history of Ralli, the technique, and how it differs in both countries within the subcontinent. Your 2003 published book has really been it's it stands as a manual, go-to manual for so many craft enthusiasts like Zen herself, like so many other individuals, students as well, journalists, etc., who have such an interest and passion in crafts and textiles in this region. My question for you is, in your research, particularly regarding the history of this ancient craft, um, how difficult was it? And I suppose what I'm asking is, it's very difficult, especially with ancient crafts, right? to trace the origin. So during that research process, like what were you discovering? Because your book is filled with a lot of interesting facts and through the ages, how it evolved the craft. So what was happening during your research process? Did you have any aha moments vis-a-vis the origins of Raleigh?
I did. I did. I had some wonderful aha moments. I think that the the moment my mind was really open to the possibility that the Raleigh tradition could be very, very old is there was at one time, well, when I was living in Islamabad, there was a small museum called the Islamabad Museum, and I went there and I saw a pot, a small, it's probably that tall, a little round pot from the dig at in Balochistan called Pirak, Pirak. And one of the things that they that I noticed on that is it was decorated with a band around the middle and then square blocks. And each of these blocks had a geometric design in it. And I had been, collecting Raleighs already by that point, and I was just taken aback. I thought each of these
Wow.
a design that I have seen. I may even have them in my house. I
Wow.
was collecting at that point. So that really got me going onto the possibility that these designs were cultural designs of the region that somehow had been passed down. And so I just always kept that in my mind. But as you know, textiles are very delicate, and they don't survive time very well. um, of course, there were no um, textiles left from 2000 BC, or 1000 BC, whenever. And
Yeah.
but I just kept that archaeological connection in my mind. And then when I got back to and I talked to a number of archaeologists, and I read everything that they had written, the archaeologists that were doing um, they were doing digs and things they were finding. And so one thing they had found from the Mohenjo-daro area was a little, and I had read this, it was a little silver vase, but it had an imprint of fabric around it. So I said, okay, fabric is good. It's good, it's important there at that time period. And so after I came back home, um, there, my husband was stationed in Philadelphia for a while, and I realized that the University of Pennsylvania, which is in Philadelphia, had a Pakistan Studies organization there, and they had stored a lot of information from Pakistan in their Museum of Children that I could put the children in preschool, and then I would race down into
Yeah.
Philadelphia and check out this library. And in it, I found the field notes and the pictures from a French excavation in this area in Balochistan called Pirak, and it
Yeah.
was volumes of sketches. And so I would just go through page by page and just get all the pictures out that where I saw the Raleigh pattern also in the pottery. And so I ended up with about 3 dozen examples of different styles of geometric patterns that were painted on these pots and
Mm.
also found in current everyday Raleighs. So
Mm.
when I got that, I started just thinking, I wonder if is this possible? Could they have started these designs, thousands of years ago? And So there were two bits of information that I found out that made me think it's possible. And one was that the archaeologists had suggested in the text that um, possibly it was women that painted these pots because they found some little fingerprints and they were smaller. And so they thought it was women who actually did the artwork on the pottery. And the second thing was in some of the old digs, they found graves of women, and the women were wearing the white bangles, but made out of seashells.
Mm.
And that is, as you know, a tradition that carries through today. That the women in a lot of the rural areas will wear the white bangles up their arms, signifying that they are either single or married, and that tradition carries through to today. So this is a part of the world where traditions can carry on for a very long time. Um, there were other peoples, coming through with, wars and things like that, but the life of the village has stayed intact. There's been a really incredible um, continuity in the way things have been done, and with that example of the bracelets, the bangles, there's a really concrete example of something that has carried through since ancient times. And with these, the designs on the pots and on the quilts,
Yeah,
they were they could have easily been passed down mother to daughter, just as the tradition of the quilting is today for the most part passed mother to daughter, and so that didn't uh, the if the leaders had changed their idea of what is beautiful, what is important, it didn't affect the household level customs and decision making. People still needed a covering when they slept, and so that was just done a certain way. And with the quilts and the layers and the stitching, and so I ran that idea by uh, several people who were scholars of Pakistan society, and we don't have any hard evidence other than the designs on the pottery, but they all said yes, that's entirely possible that this quilting tradition could have been extended so long, given the way the society is and how it functioned there.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Zen, do you have a question?
I'm Dr. Trisha, thanks to you. I think in our first meeting, I mentioned that thanks to you and your book that was introduced to me, I think 28 years ago, literally what I am doing is because you introduced me to Ralli, and I was in New York. Your book was given to me by one of my dearest friends with my first ever Ralli. So imagine how life goes full circle that I had to discover my own country's craft in New York. And thank you so much. And I told all our Rally makers that I had a meeting with you. And they were so delighted because I would send them designs from your book. So they knew it's from a book and they were always curious. And they'll be like, how come a white woman has our designs? They couldn't, because this sort of respect or um, expert, like considering them as experts or of this craft, unfortunately I think we as Pakistani people do not give them um, the level of respect or the thinking of them as artists and creators versus laborers, and that too low income laborers, low income creation. So it was really, really, they were all delighted to send you. We all decided which really to send you. and
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 that
I think in one of your interviews, I think it was you, I think you mentioned that one of the most prestigious release are always cream. They're all cream, they're all white. Those are the highest form of really making, because it requires the highest form of skill level. So I was going to send you a big, bright, beautiful, colorful one with applique work, and then this was nominated by one of our leaders to send you one of the cream ones, and they chose it, and then they were so excited, and I think they sent you a message also. I don't know if it was oral or written, but
There was a
but I'm
little
going to
card.
show.
Yes, yes. Thank
Yes.
you. Yes.
So I'm going to show them this interview, and they by now understand enough English to be able to follow. So they'll be so thrilled. And we were counting, we've made 198 release out of your book. 198. So
Oh, that is wonderful.
yes, and none of them, I work in 10 villages in Sindh. None of them had seen most of the designs you have captured. They have lost the memory of it. Even so, the oldest women in the villages are about in their 50s, mid 50s, late 50s. And even they had no memory of all of these designs. It's cultural erosion, and it's really, really sad. So this work is much more important than an average person realizes, because what they make is literally part of their identity. And I try to tell people that, but I think people living in big cities who've never lived in villages and have not worked with rural craftspeople do not understand the cultural significance, why these release are so important. And if you could share your opinion about it, because I experience that people think, oh, this should be worth like $10, this should be worth $12, like the most heartbreaking things, because in their mind, something made locally, even if it takes 300 hours, is not worth anything because it's made by, I'm going to say it very plainly, because they think it's a product, not even a craft, made by a poor woman, and she would take the littlest amount of money we give. So, if you could speak about the importance of culture and crafts like really making to the wider sort of the wider sphere of identity and ownership in rural people. I'm personally excited to hear your take on it.
Oh, it's so important to have a cultural identity and to be able to say this is from my region, this is from my people, this is from where I came from. Um, so when I first started collecting, most of the Raleighs came from Lower Sindh. And so in Lower Sindh, there's that whole color scheme, the Satrangi color scheme, where the seven colors, and they're used in just about everything. Um, and they were it. I mean, they're beautiful. They're really very beautiful. Um, but very powerful geometrics, very pleasing in their proportions, in the colors, how the colors are so harmonious. And so that was my first introduction to the Raleighs. And then and at that point, Raleighs weren't being sold very much. The reason why I even got any at all were um, handicraft dealers would go to the village and say, "Well, what would you, or what are you willing to sell? Put it in the bag," and then they would give them some sum of money for the bag. And so occasionally a Raleigh would end up in the bottom of the bag, and so when I first started, getting acquainted with the Raleighs, the handicraft stores would only have one. I mean, and
Mhm.
it wasn't even one they asked for. It just came in the bag. And So, and those handicraft shopkeepers were from the lower Sindh. So that's what I thought initially. The whole the the tradition of Raleighs were, they were all that color. They were all, strong geometrics, that sort of thing. But then as I um, asked questions and then was able to travel to some of the places, I realized there are distinct patterns. That is what I saw initially was lower Sindh, but then the middle Sindh starts bringing in bright colors, some just a whole different uh, group of aesthetics. Um, a lot more applique, and then the upper area Sindh. Oh my goodness, I got there and they had this really fine lined applique work, and it was um, so detailed in the way the applique blocks were, and the bordering with the step square design going all the way around. And then I realized that I saw some from the Rahim Yarkhan area, and it was, and instead of the green backing on the quilt, they were using orange backing. And then Cholistan has this whole earthy vibe with the deep burgundies and so I realized that this is a cultural identity. The people in lower Sindh would not make those upper Sindh designs, and because that wasn't what they were taught by their mothers. That's what wasn't shared by their neighbors as they were doing their work. So um, I started really asking people, what is uh, what is the Raleigh, your community Raleigh? And they could pick it out of a line. This is mine. This is from
Mhm.
my area. This is what my people make. Um, so I, in days before the communications that we have now, where women rarely left their village, maybe didn't speak a language they could use, more than 40 miles radius or whatever, those designs were able to stay, within the boundaries of their cultural area. But now we have a lot of uh, blending and mixing, and so it's becoming a larger group. Like it's becoming, you know, maybe even it'll get to be the Tar Desert will be the boundaries of the group, but it's or who knows how far it'll go. But I think people are still recognizing that Raleighs are part of their cultural heritage, and it says where they come from, who they are.
Absolutely. I read in one of the chapters in your book that a lot of these rural Sindh people were nomadic tribes. They would move around in Sindh depending on the wheat harvest, the rice harvest. So for them to pass through safely, it was who their identity was that determined a safe passage. And way before they could even speak to these people, when they would see the caravans coming with the bullock driven carts, they would see the release on those caravans, and that determined their safety. So literally, and I didn't know that till I read it in your book. It blew me away. And that is when I started to understand a little more. It's not just it's literally life and death. It literally depends on whether they would get food, whether they would get water, whether they would get employment. And that in itself is how important really making is. It's not just that. I think when I go in the villages, and when I speak to these village people, even within that mini village or little hamlet, the higher up the women who were decision makers were the ones who were more skilled than anybody else. So even within their own community, leadership roles were given to the more talented women. And through that, they would learn 10,000 other things like food, or how to clean your home, or how to have that mud sort of thatched look, or how to have straw. So it's not just an object. And that's one of the hardest things, because you can't have an object, you can't have a cultural icon, or like an extremely important artifact created. I think, no, sorry. What I'm trying to say is, I think people live in an anonymous world where products are just products. Products have lost their soul. A really was a lot more than just something to keep you warm or something to decorate. It showed a lot more than that, and that is what we have lost in society now, because you can't make a really by yourself. You can't weave textile by yourself. You can't dye yarns by yourself. It requires you to live in a craft making, requires you to be a part of a community. And we modern people, we city folk, do not we are so used to doing everything on our own. We don't know our neighbors. We definitely are not going to show up for them in times of need. We wouldn't know what they're suffering with, if we can help them, if they need food, if they need milk, if they need anything. But these rural people, they still live in communities, they still work with each other, and they have much stronger community bonds. And a lot, these people have nothing, Dr. Trisha, and they are happier, more grateful, mentally resilient, stronger, full of grace and gratitude. So when we lose crafts, we are not just losing culture, identity, we are losing a healthy way of living, a more mindful way of living, where you create together and that bonds you in the community. And that for me is priceless. I mean, the world is struck with this epidemic of loneliness, depression, anger. And I have yet to meet a craftsperson who is lonely, or who doesn't know who she is, or is looking for meaning in life. So
Okay.
yes, that's the importance. That's what I try to tell people, but I'm failing to do so as yet.
Oh well, it's a journey. It's a journey,
It's a
and
journey.
and some people will understand immediately what you're saying, and others will have to learn get a little bit more background and experience, and then it'll dawn on them that it was exactly right. You know, one of the things that I that struck me as an outsider looking in when I first started to study the Raleighs is that um, well, one belief I've always held is that women are very creative, and they try to beautify whatever their situation is. You know, whether they live in a very small like a mud hut, or in a little stick house, or if they live in a large, you know, mansion house. Um, there is an innate creativity among women, and what struck me as I saw some of these very small villages in Pakistan was that the the number of creative outlets I was used to coming from the States was not available to a lot of the women. For example, um, the how like as a woman where I came from, I could show my creative outlets by maybe writing a book, or I could um, decorate my house, or I could paint the walls all different colors. I could you know, do something with maybe pottery, or you know, all kinds of things. You know, could just I just limitless. what can stained glass windows, just could go on and on. But given the situation that a lot of these women live in, they are, they've made their houses with mud and straw. They're very small. They spend a lot of time outside with the animals. Um, they're just they may not know how to read and write, so they're not going to be writing a book. Um, so a lot of the creative outlets were not there, but the thing that was strong in every community was the textile, their ability to work in textiles. And so I think you're exactly right. If you're talented in textiles and you can make beautiful clothing for your family, um, beautiful pillowcases to sleep on every night, beautiful quilts, um, that really was a status. It's a bring the women of a family to higher status in her own family and also in the community, that things she could make many beautiful things. Um, and so that is the one acknowledged creative outlet for so many women in these areas, is dealing with something with textiles, either clothing, bedding, or whatever, or even animal decoration. They decorate the camels and the horses with textile wear too. So it's it really is like the probably number one creative outlet that these women have. One of the things I learned was that a family's wealth in the community was often measured by the number of quilts they had. So it's not how big
Yes.
their house is, how shiny their car is, or anything. It's the number of quilts that they had. So I think that just says a lot, that when wealth is measured by, the number of the amount of bedding that you had and beautiful things made from cloth, then it really shows you in their mind how important it is.
Not just that, Dr. Huran, one of our village leaders, Huran, she explained it to me really well. She said, then only skilled artisans, women who are excellent at really making and all other crafts, get the best marriage proposals. They get the best marriage proposals, and it's it's fair. So I said, how is that fair? And she said, because to excel at even one craft form, you need to be working really, really hard from the age of 10. Not just that, you have higher communication skills, because no craft can be made all by one person. You need the tracer, the person who cuts the designs, then the person who puts the shell together, and then the finer details come, and then somebody else does the really tanka in the end. So it shows if you are really is the best, that means you got the best out of everybody in the community. So you have leadership skills, which mean you deserve the best man in the village. And women who don't learn skills, nobody wants to marry them. That is because it shows you are lazy and you are argumentative and you don't show respect and nobody wants to work with you. I would never have put it together till Huron explained it like that.
Yes, isn't that interesting? That is just a really interesting
Yeah.
dynamic. Um, I I have seen this visiting some villages, on the Raleigh quest, and there were some villages where the most talented women in textiles were also very giving, and they wanted to share, and they were happy and whatever. And then I remember I went to this one village um, where the woman that was doing this, who was the most prolific quilter, was quite grumpy. and, and the whole village seemed to be really like subdued and like she had the chokehold on the
Yeah.
Raleighs, and it kind of it affected everybody in the village. So it's an important
Yes.
role the most talented women, if they can spread their the good parts of their personality to the whole village, right? And help with the happiness of the village, or not, or the other side too. It goes the other way.
I think those are the women who also don't teach what they know to others.
Yeah, yeah,
And
that's
I
right.
only work with villages. I have like a piece of paper on which I literally write that everything you learn from me or through working together, you are going to teach it to everybody in the group. So those are the only villages I work with, because many said, well, then go to hell, we don't want to work with you, because why should we share our knowledge with those lazy women who didn't bother to learn? And I knew that if I worked in those villages, instead of eradicating poverty, I would have caused a lot of communal local issues, because I only work in communities where the community comes together and everybody rises as a community. So you're absolutely right. And that is unfortunately, that's a sad mindset to have. And that is still very prevalent.
Well, I'm glad you're able to find some that can work together. That's a
Yes, yes.
that's a great thing.
Yes. No, there are all kinds of, I found that the villages where the poverty was like extreme, they were harsher. They were more like this. But villages where it wasn't like like just insane levels of poverty, they were more open, they were more trusting, they were gentler with. But Sindh is tough. It's a tough place, and rural life is tough, and farm life is tough. So they don't mollycoddle their kids and pamper their kids or people like we do. um, but they support. In times of need, like in COVID, in the floods, it didn't matter who it was. They all rose together. They all staged together, and they all come together in times of actual like need. I think when opportunities come to the villages, then some village owners or leaders get insecure and greedy, and they just want to keep it for
Yeah,
themselves because they're afraid they won't get another chance. But plenty of people out there, villages out there, who still, who will be like, okay, here's my last piece of bread, you have it.
mm,
So those are the ones I work with, because if a village has a leader like this, she will not agree to anything I want to do, which would be a more upgraded approach to work. So I would not be able to serve them. I'd be wasting my time.
yes, yes.
Yeah. Sonia?
That's wonderful. I'm really enjoying this conversation. And I just love the fact that it's become like a conversation. As you guys were talking, I was just thinking of something, and I'd love for both of you to answer. And that is that, initially there was this, since I'm from the media, art and culture, you name it, all of this. And I remember following all these, media platforms and everything. There was a lot of shame and awareness which had started up in the international press, local press a little bit, on fast fashion. And I really feel that now, thanks to people like yourselves, there's so much awareness and there is a lot of shame now about being a mindless consumer. And of course, I'm totally generalizing and saying that things are really shifting and changing, but I do feel there is that drop in the ocean where there is that promise. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I see a lot of these very what you may call it, very high-end brands, which are now uh, putting out campaigns which have a this is completely handmade, and this is slow fashion. So I find that's fascinating. Could you, like comment a little bit on it? I feel it's not doom and gloom anymore. It is shifting now towards understanding the worth of handmade. And like Zen, you were talking about the broader aspect of it, culture, identity. What do you guys think?
I let Dr. Trisha go first.
Okay, I do agree. I do agree. There is, excuse me, there's an awareness now that perhaps there wasn't before, that it really is important to, that quality is important, that sustainable fabrics are important. Um, there has been a lot of talk about, this the fashion that's disposable. I've heard the word disposable, where you just go out for recreation and buy, have your $20, and you can buy a couple of pieces walking around the mall at night,
Mhm.
and just buy things and then wear it a couple times, and then it doesn't last, and then it's gone, and then start over. So I have heard a lot of discussion lately about using fabrics that will last, and counting the consequences of the fashion that's disposable. Um, so I am encouraged by that people are looking more towards some of the fabrics that are going to last, like, pure cotton or wool, or some of the, going back to some of the fabrics that will last. And I have seen the consequences of um, the fast fashion, though, kind of thinking, even in the Raleigh quilts. So
Mhm.
I'm not sure if you've seen this or not, but some merchants have made a pre-printed quilt top.
Yes.
So it's the size of a single bed quilt. You can buy it for like just a few. It would, I just know it in dollars, but a few dollars at the fabric store. It's already printed with a Raleigh design, and but in it almost looks like the person has never seen a Raleigh that made it,
Mm.
just because the colors are not traditional, and sometimes they mix the different. For me, since I've studied them for so long, they mix the designs of lower Sindh with upper Sindh, or even up into the Punjab. They mix these designs together so that a person seeing it is, it's not going to be an identity of, oh, this design's from my area. No, it's just kind of a mishmash of designs. But they pre-print this fabric top, and then it's out of a synthetic fabric.
Mm.
So but I have seen some of these with absolutely gorgeous stitching work. I mean, the stitching is just so fine, and they might even put a fringe or a border around the outside that is the skill of the seamstress is fantastic. Um, but they're using the fast fashion in the middle. And
Mm.
so I was surprised by that, but realizing that that's kind of the direction that some people are going. They want the effect, but in a faster way, without the piecing and the without the thought that goes into the design in the middle. They just want the
I am I am super, super against fast fashion because you're not supposed to have 30 tops worth $2 each in a season. There is something wrong if you constantly need to go buy these things. I am guilty of participating in it in my early 20s. It started literally when I was in New York. Some of the biggest fast fashion labels came while I was working in the fashion industry. And back then, it was ridiculous. I mean, I was also very young. I was in my early 20s. And oh, let's go buy, just like Trisha said, I have $20. I can buy seven, eight, nine, 10 tops. And those, I remember it was shocking that how can this shirt be $2? How can this dress be $3? It never sat well with me. And then I don't know how many of you remember but the Bangladesh, the Rana Plaza fire, and those, I'd forgotten if it was 500 or 5,000 people were trapped and burnt alive in that plaza. And then a month later, another one, and then another one. And that really, 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 really made me rethink. And back then, I was supporting it because I was a student living in New York. I mean, I was doing 3 jobs to put myself through schools. I didn't have enough money to buy 70, $80 shirts. But then I realized it's better to buy 2 or 3 $70, $80 shirts and accessorize them well, but do not promote fast fashion and like H&M and all of these places. But I did participate in it for 2 3 years, and I would say I'm a pretty sensitive person. Wearing those synthetic petrochemical textiles didn't feel good. I was highly allergic to it. You would start stinking right away because I don't know what sort of stuff they made it with. And you could never afford to dry clean them because the top costs $2, but dry cleaning in New York costs $30. And you couldn't wash it. Those weren't washable textiles. So I did, but the younger generation, I think it's taught them this blind consumerism and low self-esteem and well-being is tied to how much can I buy? How many shirts, how many things, how many trends. So I really think, and the worst cost was paid by artisans. The worst cost was paid by third world countries and these factories even now, Sonia. uh, we hear these stories, we read these articles that these factory workers in one day will churn out like 50 shirts, 40 shirts, 60 shirts. Like, imagine that. Imagine the speed at which you have to work. Imagine what it's doing to that worker. Imagine she's inhaling all those airborne uh, synthetic plastic in the air. Imagine what's
Exactly.
happening to her lungs. Imagine she's going
Mm,
home with clothes laden with those chemicals and those fibers, and then she's going to breastfeed a child. Guess who's inhaling all of that? So
my
I
God.
am I am against it. I can talk about it for a year about all the reasons why I hate it.
But then at the same time, do you feel there is that shift? I feel people are becoming a little more aware of the repercussions of fast fashion, that they all land up in the trash pile after a couple of wears. The
I
colorful.
definitely noticed it in the US. I definitely noticed it in New York when I was there a few months ago. Entire Canal Street in New York, in downtown New York, the entire Canal Street, if you remember, Sonia, it was full of fast fashion stores. Like one
Yeah.
after the other. There were like 100 fast fashion stores there. That's where I went for
Wow.
my fast fashion.
Yeah.
They are deserted. There is nobody there. I think Century 21 is going out of fashion. All of these things are going out of fashion. But now Sheen and Timu are
Oh,
like
shit.
the
Yeah.
grandfathers of fast consumerism.
Mm. Yeah, Sheen especially. You're absolutely right. Sheen, Timu, you name it. Um, Dr. Patricia, I'm going to circle back a little bit. I'm going to bounce back and forth just a bit.
Sure.
Initially, when we started this conversation, we were talking about, your what pulled you towards this age-old craft, this technique, trace it, how it started, etc. And even, like even in your interviews, you gave a talk as well, I think maybe a little over a decade ago. It's on YouTube as well. It's phenomenal. It's really lovely. You're speaking about Ralli as well and your journey in, uh, you know, vis-a-vis, uh, let's say, making people aware about Ralli, bringing it to a global audience, etc., etc. Um, Honestly and realistically, where do you see these age-old crafts? Like, what is the future of it? And I know this is a whole bunch of word salad thrown around. These are typical journalist questions. The media throws it around so much. But really, realistically, Dr. Patricia, what is the future of these crafts that really exist in the memories, in the identities of uh, these people who have been so faithfully and mindfully carrying them forward from generation to generation. And here we are just throwing water on it and getting wrapped up into this AI craze, artificial intelligence and being fast, etc. What's your take? What's the future of Raleigh?
Well, I think that because there are some folks like us that care about it, I think is a really good a good starting point. That really is now it's got a presence on the internet. I mean, uh, there are people have written things about it. Some people have collected. Some museums have pieces. I think that is just a wonderful start. So just to step back just a little bit, one of the experiences I had in looking after old textiles was I went to China, to Southwest China, because I knew there was a kind of quilting there where it was it's very specific. It was made from little blocks of um, fabric that were appliqued to auspicious um, symbols, animals, insects, birds, flowers, and it was indigo and madder root dyed, and they were sewn together, and then it was like a duvet cover that was filled with cotton, and then they put a border around it. Lovely, just lovely, charming. You just look at it and you smile because it's just so they're just so cute, and the colors were just so great together. So a friend of mine had spent a lot of time in China. She had collected those, and so we spent 2 weeks and going through. We hired a driver and someone to help us who knew the villages, and we went through all the villages in this area to find out who was still making them. And at the end of the 2 weeks, we came to the conclusion that there was just one village, and it had completely died out during the Cultural Revolution in China, and people could almost pinpoint that the last ones were made in the 1940s, and that and with the Chinese tradition, when things get worn out, they a lot of times they'll burn them for New Year's because they do a clean house kind of thing, and so there weren't that many examples left. And so the thing that struck me was that without some kind of care and without some kind of documentation, a beautiful textile tradition like these wedding quilts that were made for weddings could die out, and they had. So, in my mind, I'm thinking, I hope that Raleighs are a step ahead of this. We have some um, museums with examples. We have people that care. We have people like Zen who are trying to really uh, promote, activate, uh, get women back into it if they've fallen out of it, or if they haven't lost their tradition, give them encouragement to keep going. Um, and it, my guess is that it will not um, continue into the future with the same number of women doing it as in the past, because now there's options.
Yeah.
The option in China is you go to the marketplace and they are just piles of factory made quilt,
Mm.
machine stitched, and that's what people buy for weddings now. They don't do this, the charming, a one with the all the auspicious signs on it and for happiness and good life. They just buy a pre-made one. but I think in Pakistan, there is more awareness of it, and I think if we can get in at this point and encourage people that are interested, encourage the people that have the skills to keep it up, and to um, I've seen some lovely fashions made with, the Raleigh as a design as borders or as a shalwar kameez set or whatever, to keep it going that way. And something very interesting, I think sometimes these things are cyclical, and if we
Mm.
can keep the knowledge base alive as things come around again to be more aware of culture and community, then we're in good shape. So there was a news story I saw yesterday that's talking about so many people are turning back to older customs, like for hobbies, people are practicing basket making and knitting and
Mm.
things like that, things that are considered older craft. And we don't really uh, need, at one point in time, we needed basket makers and knitters to just to live. But we don't anymore, but people are taking it up as a hobby, as a craft. Um, and the comment on this news story was that people are tired of things always being, on the computer, electronic, uh, and fast. They
Mm.
want to turn back to the crafts that take some time.
Yeah.
Even things like making puzzles or, embroidery, needlework, that's coming back. They're seeing this, as people are buying materials to make all these things, they're enrolling in classes on how to make it. So, um, that was from the U.S. perspective, but I think that it can be true in other places too. That um, as people, you know, take on new things, new hobbies, a lot of times they realize the satisfaction of actually creating something, of making
Mm.
something. It's so satisfying, and it's something you can gift to friends or hand down to your children, or something that you can be proud of. This was made by someone in my family. And so I think that even though it is alarming to me sometimes that to hear that people and the women, particularly in some of these villages, have forgotten their the patterns, the Raleigh patterns, and things like that. I think there's enough of a base and enough of a group that's interested in them to keep the knowledge going, so it can be continued.
Mm. I can add a bit since I'm doing this now, and Dr. Trisha, it seems that for the sustainability of any craft form, it needs to be picked up by the younger generation. So if something is not appealing to like a 20-year-old girl, an 18-year-old girl, a 16-year-old girl, a 14-year-old girl, she's not going to do it now. It's not, even in rural Pakistan, the culture has changed. And for example, in the beginning when I started in 2018. When I would go to these villages, the younger girls, I would say like 20 and younger, were not happy that I'm there. Were not happy that I'm telling their mothers to make this, because um, they were so fed up of seeing their mothers work for 60, 80, 90 hours, and then to have the person who got it made haggle, negotiate, and offer pittance, like disrespectfully low amount. It wasn't just the really, really, really shameful labor wages that were offered. It was the entire attitude. It was not that you are treating them with respect as skilled artisans. You were treating them like low value labor, and that to low value labor. I mean, I don't know how to say it. And And they refused. The younger kids refused. They're like, literally, they were saying, I'll starve to death, but I'll be damned before I do this. I will not do it. And I don't care if I never get married. Because there was just nothing about it showed respect. Nothing about it showed that the person is appreciating the craft form or the skill level, and definitely not paying them enough. So what I am trying to, my focus moved then to the younger women, the ones who are just starting off, because if they do not pick up the skill in their early teens, like 10, 12, 13, they don't suddenly pick it up in their 20s. So it has to be, it's like an initiation that happens around preteens. And if they are so resentful that they don't care if they're beaten, they don't care if they're not fed, they're not going to do it, then that's not the way to revive or keep a craft going. That is why I bring in new innovations, new colors, trendier things, funkier things, teaching them how to, that this is a craft form, but you can make a skirt out of it, you can make a top out of it, you can make a bag out of it, you can make a wallet out of it. And then showing them um, people's reaction, because all the shows I had would be out of Pakistan mostly. They'd be in New York or DC or Virginia or California, Berkeley, Bay Area. And there the people would forget about thinking about negotiating with me. They thank me. They thank me for bringing something so beautiful to them. They wanted to know the makers, they wanted to know the villages, the names. They were curious about it, and that is what interested the younger generation. For example, uh, talking to you, sending you a quilt, telling them everything in your book, showing it to them, and that they were like, look ma'am, somebody in America is appreciating us. Look ma'am, somebody in America is happy to have our products. So it's only going to survive if our own people start giving artisans the respect, the due wages for the labor. And this is something that happened in the last 100 years. I mean, artisans always were paid well and highly respected. They were in all the royal
Mm.
courts would have artisans and craftspeople. They would make things for royalty. But in the last 50, 60, 100 years or whatever, they were reduced to low value, uneducated, poor laborers. And that is the dilemma. Like the kids were telling me, I have a shot in life if I get into the police force, ma'am. I have a shot in life if I can get into the army. For example, Sonia, Rahila had wanted to go to Pakistan Army. That's the only way she saw a way out of poverty and a way to support her family. Never
Wow.
in her life did she dream that she would move to Islamabad, live in an all girls hostel and work for me. It never occurred to her.
Dr. Patricia, Rahila is one of Zen's artisans, and Zen educated her. She's done her bachelor's, and she is working in business development with Love Handmade. She's completely, it's incredible. She interfaces with clients online at exhibitions. It's really a sight to see.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
amazing. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And now Rahila has become a role model that if Rahila can do this, so can I. So this is what the younger generation wants to do. Like if I put myself in their shoes, I would be even worse. I would be even angrier. I would be even more resentful. So hats off to these girls to still trust me, to still give it a shot, to want to continue. So yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now tell me, is schooling available in the villages that you work in for the young girls? Do they have schooling,
Uh
or is it go
no,
schooling?
all my kids go to private schools because the local government schools, uh most of them, none of these people were sending their kids to school because they needed the children to help at
Yeah.
home at the farm with the animals, with, they were having a child every year, so they couldn't afford it. The
Yeah.
free government schools that were in their villages, when I sort of intervened, I sort of mandated that the kids go to school, because I was working with them from with a JICA project, the Japanese International Corporate Agency, and there is no way we could have anything to do with child labor. So in Sindh, child labor is till if a 16-year-old is working at home, that's not child labor. But if a 16-year-old has to leave her home and go into a factory, that is child labor. So 18 is when women can work, but these women cannot leave their community. So I mandated that every
Yeah.
single child will go to school and college if they want to, because that's what the kids told me they wanted to. The kids were like, we want to go to a school, but not the government school, we want to go to a private school. So I found out, to my utter horror, like stuff out of nightmares. I unfortunately didn't believe the children the first time. They told me that they're beaten to death, and that all they do in those schools is the teachers or the principal's housework. They are washing clothes, making food for the. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I didn't sort of believe them right away. So I went to this village school. There were cows tied in the school. It had turned into a dairy farm, and the teacher really was making them cut. They were cutting spinach the day I walked in. She wasn't teaching. Some children were raising her kids, some were making her food, some were washing her clothes. So I was, I'd never seen it, heard it. I couldn't even believe it. So we send our kids to private schools. Each kid, the tuition is about 3,000 rupees. And then we hire private rickshaws. So a group of them can go together, and that ends up costing us about 2,000 rupees. So for every artisan to send one kid to school, it costs her 5,000. But Alhamdulillah, we are so lucky, we are so blessed that all our kids, mothers and sisters can afford to do it. So mothers are working, older sisters are working. So the kids are, and this is why the kids are doing well in school, and they're looking forward to school, and they're actually learning something. The other thing is that the free government schools were only teaching them Sindhi, the language. And I think like something useless like Pak studies, which is like studies about Pakistan. They
Yeah.
weren't learning English, Urdu, math, science. So, what sort of education? They already knew Sindhi. So, we send them to private schools and good English medium schools. So, they are learning science, they're learning maths. So, now they want to be engineers and doctors and cricket team captains. And now the mothers are delighted to work because their children are happy. All mothers work to see their children smile and to see their children eat a good meal. Why else would mothers work?
Oh, that's inspiring. Inspiring is what all I can say. That's amazing. I think you've just hit on so many crucial points there with your plan and getting those girls educated. That's fantastic.
Thank
Eh,
you. No, it's so brave of them. It's they're earning the money. I'm
Yeah.
just providing them with an opportunity. It's them earning the money.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dr.
Because I
Patricia,
don't believe in charity. Charity doesn't build dignity or sustainability. Charity actually rips these people of dignity and from the will to solve their own problems.
Hmm.
Sorry,
Yes.
Sonia, go ahead.
no, absolutely, so well said. Dr.
Yeah.
Patricia,
I have
actually,
one.
I was very eager to
Can
ask
I
you.
have one
Yes,
question
yes.
for Zen?
Sure.
Um,
Yes.
what is the effect of cell phones in the communities?
So actually, delighted to report that there was a lot of resistance from the village men to not give these girls smartphones or any kind of phone, because They were convinced all the girls will elope with men or be like corrupted. But unfortunately, when COVID started, there was no other way I could work with them. So then the option in the communities was that those men who allow their daughters and wives to have phones can continue working with me. But those who don't will not be able to work with me. It's not, there was no other way I could work with them. How else was I going to work with them? So I am so, I think 300 girls and women were giving smartphones, and the villagers were like, if any girl elopes, we are going to come to Islamabad and get you.
Oh, that's pretty
Yeah, they did.
severe.
So fortunately, in these 7 years, none of my girls have run away, but other village girls have run away, the ones who didn't have smartphones.
Oh, that's funny.
I'll be happy to report, Dr. Trisha, you're going to love this. This makes my day. So when I met them for the first time in 2018, the 13, 14, 15-year-old girls, when I would ask them, what do you want to be? Before the kid could answer, the mother would say, oh, I'm getting her married. She's 13. We're getting her married now. She's 14. We're getting her married. Now those 13, 14-year-olds are 22 and 23. And the parents are still not willing to marry them. They because I had shared the scientific research that when women marry between 25 and 28, they have much better marriages, they are much better mothers, they raise healthier children, and especially if they are educated, they lift the entire extended family up too. So I think, forget about child marriage. None of these girls want to get married. None of their parents want to force them to get married because they're like, she's happy, we are living better than the highest government officer in that village. We make more money. So they're studying. Most of them who finished their school went to high school and colleges. Many of them are in colleges. So the focus has moved away from getting rid of the girl as soon as possible with the first man who comes along. And the interesting thing is the few who are getting married are getting the best marriage proposals from educated men who want an educated wife, an empowered wife, because these men work in cities like Karachi and they understand the power of education and an intelligent wife who's raising their children. So everything I was told flipped on me, and the tables have turned, and these women are powerhouses. And they have laptops, they have tablets, they have everything that they could want.
Oh, that is just fantastic. That just makes me smile.
Yeah.
I think that it's the power of craft. When you look at it, because you went there with the intent to help the craft survive and to use it in fashion. Excuse me, I kind of have a cold coming on, but you went there with that intent. But look what you've done. I mean, you have changed the society. You have changed the lives for all these people, and not only their lives, but their children, the whole society by
Dr. Trisha, they've done it. They did it themselves. I just
you were
taught
the
them the
catalyst.
value of their skill. I just
Yeah.
showed them what their skill is worth. That's all I did. Thank you so much for all your kind words, but honestly, they've done it themselves. It's all on them.
Yes, but you were the catalyst. You were the one that sparked it in them too. And you gave them the idea that they could have a better life through their own work, through
Yeah.
their craft. And so that idea is so powerful. And look what's happened in the 7, 8 years that you've been working with them. It's incredible.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Like the quilts they sent you, the artisans, the quilts they sent you, um, what, how would you, how would you review it? Like if you were to give us a really review on the sage quilt, how,
Oh,
and
I have it right here. And I don't know if, oh, you know what? I'm going to try something. I'm going to try turning this overhead light off and maybe it'll make the stitching show up a little better. Oh, no,
I
that
think it
wouldn't.
will show better. It will.
It will.
Yeah,
Okay.
so sweet.
Uh, okay, because it's white. And that the other lights were making it. Is that?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Alia
Yeah.
chose it.
Yes, it's so beautiful. And so this is a light colored, as you can see, beautiful Raleigh that's made with different colors of stitching. And the stitching is very fine. It's very even. And you can tell that someone put a lot of effort into it and to make it very harmonious. And I love this quilt. I have it on the foot of my bed every night, and then I pull it up, and it is just beautiful. And I think as far as uh, being able to use it on almost any kind of decor, it would work with, if someone had a lot of bright colors in their house. This is another contrast to that, and the stitching is just lovely. And I'm really happy that this kind of stitching is used because it does come from the tribal and the nomadic peoples, and which are a smaller group, and so they need to have their skills in stitching. Um,
Yes, this really, Dr. Trisha, this really is the only kind of really that I can say we revived, because nobody knew how to do this. And it took us maybe 5 years to do it, because none of them had ever seen it in real life. They'd never heard about it. Their grandmothers had not seen it. So they were, when they don't know something in the beginning, they are like terrified of it and they're very suspicious of it. And this requires you to memorize the design. This design is not traced, it's not counted, because four different women sit one on each corner, because it is so labor intensive that four of them sit one on each corner and they work their way in it. And the hardest is you can't tell which corner is stitched by which woman it is. And they do it by laughing, they do it by talking, singing. So this is made by four different women, and it's all from, like, I think they count. It's not even in front of them on a paper. They just sort of, I ask them, how are you doing it? And they say we pretend we see a pattern on it, but there isn't any. They're not counting.
Oh,
They
that's
pretend.
beautiful.
I can't
My,
even comprehend that.
wow.
Yes, it's incredible. And I didn't know that part about that it was four women that worked on it because I cannot tell a difference in the stitching. And oftentimes in Raleigh's, you can tell, like if someone was, like if a group of women were stitching, that some will have a longer stitch length, some will have a shorter one. Um, and but this is just amazing. There's no way to tell that this was made by four different women.
Thank you. I will show them this clip and they would be so excited. And she was like, Ali was like, make sure you tell Dr. Trisha that this was not traced and that we did it from our own minds. So I'm like,
Oh,
Ali, I promise I'll tell her.
oh, it's fantastic. Yes.
I'm
Thank
going to just
you.
quickly
Thank you, all the
interject.
women. What's
I'm
that?
just going to quickly interject because I'm not going to send you guys another link. We are going to be shutting down in exactly 1 minute, 30 seconds.
Oh,
So I thought it'd be lovely to just wrap up. And Thank you both for being a part of this conversation. And Dr. Patricia, Zen, I hope we can have conversations like this every couple of months, if possible, or even every couple of weeks. I think because the more we speak, the more we learn, the more we give this information out, the more awareness there is.
I would love that. Dr. Trisha, thank you so much on behalf of all my artisans for giving back their designs. If you hadn't put them together in a catalog and a book with descriptions, with the whole story behind it, I don't know how I would have done this.
Oh, well, it was my pleasure. It's my pleasure. And I just love this craft. I love the women that make it. I know their stitches are heartfelt. They, make these things for their families and for their babies. And so I'm just so happy to be a part of all this.